I remember not watching Roots in the 1970s as a little boy. Yeah, well, I missed it. I didn't see it. And I mean, it's kind of tragic in those days because when you missed something in those days, you didn't see it for like a decade. You couldn't rent it, you couldn't do anything. It just didn't show up for another decade. That was it. Tough breaks. I wasn't able to socialize properly because, like, well, for about like 3 weeks because that's all anybody talked about. Like the teachers, the students, everybody except for my family. That's everybody watched it, and even lunchtime, like we'd play roots. We wouldn't play baseball anymore. We'd play roots. We called it roots, and they called the ball a root. Everything was a root, and well, everything was kind of surreal because it was like the names. I can't remember anything because I didn't really pay attention. I kind of tuned out, because everything was roots, and there were a lot of clucking sounds and sort of like a kind of like thing like that. And anyway, I didn't pay attention. I didn't know what was going on, so I just kind of tuned out and daydreamed all day long, and it was kind of like an okay time, maybe a turning point too, because I kind of I kind of enjoyed myself weirdly. Anyway, all I know about the show is that white people went to Africa and caught black people with nets. I mean, it's really stupid because what really happened was they bought them at a market. But, it's not like a story about, there's no lessons about trust to be had here. Anyway, I didn't know this when I was a kid. So at school when the kids were going to play nets. I didn't know what they were talking about. So I just said, yeah, like, I want to play with the other kids. Why not? So they said they had to pick. I need a replacement word because I'm not allowed to say this word. The nibbler. The nibbler. I'll say nibbler. Like, it was the 1970s. They said that to, like, they had to pick. I didn't even know what the word meant because this is Canada. We didn't, everybody was just kind of like, I'm Ukrainian, so, we were kind of a minority. We were called the N-word. We are actually called the N-word. Yeah, my grandfather was called the N-word. He told me it was like a thing that used to happen. And they put us in concentration. They didn't put us. They put thousands of Ukrainians in concentration camps in the 20th century. In Canada. Yeah, yeah. In Canada. Great. Yeah. Anyway, it's weird because like all these I don't want to talk politics. I don't want to talk politics. I'm just talking about like this word, this terrible word. Okay, I'm saying nibbler, nibbler. Like that's nibbling feet or something and that sounds cute. So maybe I shouldn't say nibbler because it's like, it's like people don't, it hurts people. If it hurts people, I'm not going to give it a comical name. I'll just call it N-word. Okay, N-word. All right. So they said they had to pick the N-word. All right, and I didn't know what the N-word was at that time. So when the other kids seemed to sense that I never saw Roots, their eyes all turned shifty because they knew that, I guess it wasn't very fun being the N-word. When you're little and you play and everybody takes up a character, we'd play like, cowboys and Indians and cops and robbers. Yeah, that would be a huge part of my childhood. I don't know if people do that. Did the kids do that still? I hope they do. Anyway, these people were all my friends, and the evil eyes they were giving me were just part of the play. Like it's everybody's evil, and playing kind of brings everything out of a kid. It brings the heroics and it brings the evil. Like you don't know if you're going to be a villain or like the hero. You don't know. So anyway, everything was just a gag. It was all fun. So I play along with everything. That's my personality. I play along with things. I don't have to understand it. I'll take a dare. So after rolling the dice, and, all the other kids in my class pointed their fingers at me and started chanting. I can't chant it. N word, N word, N word, N word, N word, N word, N word. And once you chant it, it starts turning into like a like that. It makes no sense. N word, N word, and yeah, it doesn't sound mean, you know. Anyway, it was kind of mean because they were all like they were screaming it, and this is supposed to be one of the scenes in Roots. Apparently, I don't know. I still haven't seen it, so I don't know. We didn't have like everybody was white, so I had to be that person because well, everybody made fun of Polish people in the 70s, and I never found out why. Everyone would tell like all these jokes. I'm not sure if I can say the name. It's Pola. Like, should I finish it even? Should I finish it even? You know? But they were jokes. Like you could buy like I remember I had a book. I had the Polish. I'm gonna say Polish instead of like the name. I had a Polish version of The Godfather. Yeah, I read The Godfather, but it was like a Polish version. And anyway, like nobody was Polish, so I'm Ukrainian, so everybody knew that that was geographically close. So it just made sense that I was the N-word, you know. And you know, Anthony, he fired off his starting pistol, but he wasn't allowed to bring it to school. He knew that. He already knew that, so he was the first kid to be suspended in our class. No, ever in the school. I can't say in the school, but it was a big deal, like because he was suspended for shooting a starting pistol. It's people can actually get quite hurt from a starting pistol. But anyway, like he loved that thing. He loved that thing. They took it away from him. You know, only kid in our class to be suspended. So that was his distinction. You know, other than drinking red wine during meals, he was allowed to drink red wine during meals because he was Italian. The teacher let him do it. So I guess we had a different system in the 1970s. It was a little more lenient, right? Or maybe they just thought it was fruit juice, and I'm just remembering it. Like maybe he just told everyone he was allowed, and the teacher never noticed. Anyway, Bill Beasler, yeah, he started whipping me. I don't know where he got that whip from because Mr. Backstorm took it away from him, and Bill just smashed things for a week. He was so mad. He said he'd never get another whip again because they stopped making them. So anyway, he had the whip again, and you know, I can't say I was happy for him, you know, but yeah, it was like I was playing Roots, you know, and then the Planet of the Apes, they started playing those, you know, like a 1 week cycle, and they played all the Planet of the Apes movies, and that's what knocked Roots off. Okay, so it was a huge deal for all of us. Like, well, maybe just the boys. I don't know. We'd play Ape, and you know, I still have the whip scars on my back from all the times I played Taylor. And Bill Beasler was always doing the whipping. That was the funny thing. He loved whipping people. Anyway, I hated that probably more than anything else about being a kid. Probably being whipped. Yeah, probably everybody, right? So I just freaked. I let him whip, but you know, you can only do that so long until I just like, no, this is enough. You have to do that. You have to do that because if you let yourself be whipped, then years later you'll get bitter and you'll say, my gosh, I just let myself being whipped. So I grabbed the whip and I did a tug of war with him, and I tug of warred him towards me, which surprised Bill Beasler when he started tipping toward me. And just out of reflex, I raised my knee and his face planted right into it, flattening his nose, instantly crushing into his skull. Little kids' skulls are fragile. I didn't mean to do this. I didn't want to cave in Bill Beasler's face. I really didn't. I can't say I liked him, but I didn't hate him. Okay? The instant, it haunts me. It haunts me all the time. I have dreams about it. I like nightmares, I could say, but they're not really nightmares. It's like in a background kind of thing. There's Bill Beasler going, "Oh, my face! You did this to my face," and anyway, it's haunting. That is haunting. Okay, like it's way in the background, like because I'm kind of used to it. And I guess he walks around haunting my nightmares or dreams, or I don't know if I have nightmares. What is a nightmare and what is a dream? Maybe my dreams would be nightmares to someone. They go, "Whoa, that's scary. That flower can talk." I don't have talking flowers in my dreams. I wish I did. Maybe if I drew talking flowers, I would dream talking flowers. Do you get it? So if you draw something, it enters into the dream world. Okay? And the dream world is our subconscious minds, which are connected. They are connected in some weird way if we get away from the web. Like people have to get away from the web and get back into the connection of the dream world. And you'll see Bill Beasler crying too. He wrecked my face. So anyway, I visit him once a week. I'm not like, I might be sounding like I'm callous, but I'm not. I visit him once a week to this day, decades later, okay? And I take him out for walks. His face isn't there anymore, he has no eyes. I have to hold his hands and guide him, both of his hands, because he swings. Like, he's still mad at me. But I mean, he was the one whipping me. Anyway, I don't really blame myself to this day. I don't blame myself. People will say, like, don't you feel guilty? And I don't, actually, because it was just self-defense. Like, wouldn't you do the same thing? Anyway, I'm a jerk. I'm always a jerk. So, I get used to it. Anyway, he has this big hole where there should be a face, and it looks kind of creepy, actually. My kids saw it once, and anyway, I'm not going to say like that. That's too, like, I don't want to talk about them so much, but anyway, to my shock and awe, caught my whole body. They caught my whole body in this great net. They kicked me to stop me from trying to crawl out of the net. And I don't like. It makes me not want to watch Roots. To this day, I say, well, I don't want to. Like, I remember playing Roots. I didn't like that. But Ape, I didn't like that either. Until Bill Beasler was gone. And then everything was fun when Bill Beasler was gone. I mean, let that be a lesson. I don't know what kind of lesson it is, but it's a lesson. Okay. And the worst of all, like, Bill Beasler would put live chickens into the net. I would be in that stupid net, and they would be kicking me, and they'd throw live chickens. And then, like, people used to call cowardly people chicken. Chicken, what are you, chicken? Bark, 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 bark. But no, after being clawed by those birds, I don't even know what it means to be called a chicken. Those things were vicious. People would go, buck, 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 chicken, buck, 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 chicken, buck, 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 chicken, yeah. Put you in a net. Well, put them in a net. You're not going buck, buck, chicken right now. Put them in a net with scratching and pecking chickens and see what they think about buck, 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 chicken. The only chicken he ever sees is already dead and on his plate. That's why he goes buck, 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 chicken. Of course it's a chicken because he's eating it. But yeah, you wait. You play Roots. You play Roots, and you be the N-word in Roots, and you won't like it. You won't like it as much as I didn't like it. Okay. You do the same thing to Bill Beasler that I did to him too. Like, I tell you this. Okay, or else you'd be bitter. Years later, you'd be bitter. Okay, and I'm not bitter. I'm a pretty happy person in spite of the world falling apart. I'm pretty happy. Okay, because I was able to do what I did to Bill Beasler. Okay, and not feel guilty about it because I know right and wrong. If I did it, say if I did it to him, and he wasn't whipping me. Say instead he was trying to give me some cookies, and like, here, have my cookies, and then I caved in his face. That would be terrible. I'd feel guilty to this day, But I don't. But I must feel guilty about it because I still visit him. But it's not that I feel guilty. I feel like it's a connection to my past, because it's just, you got to be connected to your past, right? Anyway, the kids grabbed the nets and the pole, and they started dragging it, and I was in that net. And the chickens, I sort of placed them underneath me, and to stop, they stopped attacking me as they were getting sort of dragged under. And this way it didn't scrape my knees or it didn't scrape anything, So I'm just resting on top of them while they pecked and scratched the ground instead, and see how well that works. Anyway, so they finally dumped me out of the net, and all these chickens stuck to my body, and I felt like I just, it was awful. It was an awful feeling, chicken bones in my hand, but it's like, I had all that chicken. What am I going to do? Bring it home and eat it, right? That's what you do. That's what all of us would do. But, yeah. No, I was confused. Still, like, coming home with all this blood all over me, this chicken blood all over me, and chicken pieces stuck to my hair, and bones, and I had a bone sticking out of my nose, and it looked kind of shocking, right? It looked shocking. I felt so stupid, though, compared to everyone else. I thought, I had no idea what to do next, because I hadn't seen Roots. I hadn't seen it. This is the kind of thing that happens to you, like in the old days. Can I call it the old days? I can't call it the old days, because to me the old days is the 1930s. It's not, the 1970s, but I guess those are the old days. So, yeah, this is what I mean about not being able to socialize properly. I was a weird kid. I was a weird kid because we didn't have cable. We lived a little further away past this little area, and I don't know, just around the farms and stuff like that. And some of the other kids, they would have cable, and well, I guess all the kids had cable except for me and this other fella. Yeah, didn't have cable. And we had a uniculture back then from TV, and we didn't have cable. I made it for the Planet of the Apes. I had that channel. That was the only good channel that we had. They would play Planet of the Apes. They would play Clint Eastwood Week, and we'd see all the weird sci-fi shows like Soylent Green and stuff like that. We'd see all the really cool stuff, but we never saw Roots. We never saw the new stuff. Anything that was new, and so I guess in some way I kind of feel close to the people of the 1930s. I listened to their music. I listened to all, because we didn't get normal stuff. We didn't get the normal channels, and I had to listen to old like radio shows, and Al Jolson. Like I had some like those were my heroes, right? I didn't know about like the Beatles or 1970s music, disco, or I didn't really know about music, and like from the the era that we're living in, like that I was living in with the other kids, because people didn't bring music to school, that we didn't have that technology yet, right? So all I heard was the old stuff, the good old stuff, right? The good stuff, the real stuff. It's the beat. The beat just started taking over the melody. If you listen to the old stuff, it's just melody, and I have melody in my head. That's it feeds the imagination, these melodies. But then the beat, there's the beat, and it's the beat. Like you could just look at the world, like in the past 150 years, and it's like, don't look at anything but music, and don't even look at specifics. Just look at beat and melody, and what you'll see is this straight line of the beat just getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. What does it mean? I don't know. I don't know, but I wrote a song about it. I wrote a poem and a song about it where I spiritualize it. Okay, and it's really exciting. And anyway, I go back to my talking about roots. Um, yeah, it's all the kids would be play acting out games from every movie. Dukes of Hazzard, that was a big one. We got that. We actually got that. Dukes of Hazzard was one of the shows that we did get. I loved that show. Like the first season when they were bootleggers, that was the best season. Okay, and then they got kind of, I don't know, it got kind of dorky, the show, but the first season was awesome. As a kid, if you watched it right now, you'd probably say, well, this is ridiculous. This is made for a 10-year-old. Uh, anyway, I'd always be in total confusion when I never saw the show, because we never had cable. It's this one channel, and then the Canadian channel. And the Canadian channel was like, we would get like another show every once in a while. It would be from the States that was popular once in a while. Um, you can never predict it. So while all the other kids knew their roles, I had to basically take whatever role was given to me. Um, then they did the honey ritual from Roots. Oh, that was awful, awful, awful. They poured honey all over me, all over me. And then they sent the wasps. I said, not the wasps, not the bees. And they sent the bees. They sent the bees on me. Yeah. Anyway, and I had to eat flowers, a lot of flowers. And I don't, like I say, I'll never watch Roots because I had to do all of this. I was sick. I was so sick after that. And this show defined racism for a whole generation. And I experienced it all firsthand as the N-word, as the designated N-word of all the games. And the kids made me work at a cotton plantation at one point, and I made so much money for them, and they all spent it on candy. I never got any of the candy. This is when I learned to sing. I invented blues music. Well, I didn't invent it, but I thought I invented it. It just came out of me. I don't know how it came out of me because I never heard that type of music before. Like I said, I only heard 1930s kind of music, like stuff like that. And it was like, Judy Garland, and it was like Al Jolson and like stuff like that. And it wasn't, blues music. I wasn't listening to Robert Johnson, Blind Willie, I don't know, Blind Lemon Willie. I don't know. I forgot all their names. I went on a binge listening to all those guys, and I forgot all their names. Kind of blend together right now. A lot of blind people, and a lot of lemon people. Anyway, that's why I make these videos. I have music in my heart. I have music in my heart from those days when I used to sing on the imaginary plantation. When I was the N-word of the class. Yeah. Anyway, the day after was a big one. That's the nuclear war, the nuclear explosion. And that was an awful one because we actually had that channel. We had it. I could have watched it, but I don't know. Does it sound fun? A movie about people crying for years, suffering after a nuclear bomb. I don't know. It doesn't, like, if you put like talking monkeys into it, or you do something wild with it, okay, cool. But anyway, I didn't watch it. And I suffered the consequences when everybody was playing nuclear fallout shelter dramas, and I was always the one that was thrown into the test zones and had to melt and all of that stuff. And I was the one that was catchy. I was the one that had the radiation, and everybody had to, It is like, this is the terrible thing, when if you didn't watch a show, they would just scapegoat you. It wasn't that they didn't like me or anything, because if I watched the show, then I wouldn't be so stupid to take the part that I shouldn't take, and I'd watch the other person take the other part, and they'd take the other part, and it's too bad for them. Bad news bears, and we throw the balls at them. You never saw the show? Okay, did you watch the part where they threw the balls at the kid, and, until he cried? And we did that, and the kid cried, and he never watched Bad News Bears, and he'll never watch it. He'll never watch it, and so he'll never know that there was no scene where all the kids just got the balls and threw them at the kids until he cried. Like, no, he'll never know. That's the terrible thing. Kids are so cruel. When I was a kid, like the other kids, they were everybody was cruel. I can't say the other kids because I was cruel with them. Everybody was cruel. But the dividing line is whether you empathize through that process, and I think you have to be cruel during childhood, because that's the whole thing, is you're trying to get to a place of empathy. And so you have to see human cruelty, and then you see suffering in front of you, and you develop your emotions just through play as a child. And we have to have these horrible, horrible things happen in play, because the world is horrible, and we have to learn how to deal with it through play and the imagination. This is the way, So, it was really depressing to be a kid for a little while in the 1980s, We'd play so hard, some of the kids would get lesions on their skin. We'd walk around dizzy, psychosomatic symptoms abounded. Yeah. Once you start playing nuclear fallout victim, you start feeling like a nuclear fallout victim. There's a whole bunch of kids that ended up getting chronic fatigue syndrome just for playing this. Andy Bullwaller's sweater burned into his skin, and that was never explained. Nobody ever knew how that happened. Some people say to this day, "Oh, you tattooed on, you tattooed it," but no, he was a kid, and it happened right in front of us. Like, he tore off his sweater. He said, "It burns," and tore it off and threw it on the floor, and it was smoking. The sweater was smoking, and we all just stamped on the sweater, and the smoke dissipated from the air, and we saw. I mean, it's like, are we imagining this? We just stamped on a burning sweater, and now the sweater is on him. And as we looked closer, we noticed it was his skin. It was his skin, and the worst thing was it was a Freddy Krueger sweater, and this was a whole bunch of years before Freddy Krueger. Okay, and so he looked like Freddy Krueger when he took his shirt off, and everybody laughed at him, and they started calling him Freddy Krueger. Anyway, that's another story. That's when we were older. And at this point, they called him the Corduroy Kid, because this is way before Freddy Krueger, He's the Corduroy Kid. The Corduroy Kid, which kind of sounded cool, I thought. He hated it. But Corduroy Kid, call me the Corduroy Kid, They called me the N-word, I didn't like that. But they called me the Corduroy Kid. I'm not going to be like freaking out. The one huge show I did watch was the last episode of MASH. Yeah, that was really good. The most watched comedy of all time. I was only able to see the first half of the show because my dad changed the channel, though. It was about Hawkeye. And he was the main character, and he killed a chicken savagely with his bare hands. So, me of all people, I understand why someone would hate chickens, But that was obnoxious of Hawkeye. It was like, he was always a likable character, but then he killed that chicken. And this is what I mean about play, You have to do something cruel in play for you to be fully human. And so Hawkeye wasn't fully human when he just mutilated that chicken with his bare hands. Okay, that wasn't a human act. And when he was talking to the psychiatrist, he developed his humanity through understanding what he did. He was always the guy with the funny jokes. Always the guy with the funny jokes. Always the guy with the laugh. That last joke. It was just too far. It's just not funny to kill chickens with your bare hands. So that was a real doozy of a last episode because it really got into the sick humor, right? But I never found out what happened at the end. To tell you the truth, I wasn't laughing, actually. I didn't find it funny. Maybe I was the only one in the room, and I wasn't watching it with other people. Sometimes comedy works like that. I wasn't laughing when I was killing my chickens. It wasn't funny to me, so maybe it brought back traumatic memories, and for other people, it's just hilarity. It was either me or them with those chickens, though, and that was one of my most grueling moments of my life. Okay, I don't know if I've been in anything so difficult to think back upon, even, because when I think back upon it, I feel like sometimes I always feel like I'm in that net, crawling and trying to stay on top of those chickens so I don't get dragged on the ground and all the kids kicking me and calling me the N-word, But anyway, I guess Hawkeye and me are the same because he really had to kill the chicken. He felt he had to kill the chicken, and I felt I had to kill the chicken. Yeah. Anyway, kill the clucker. Kill the clucker. That's what we should say. We should be brothers. Anyway, it was supposed to be a comedy, but Hawkeye was crying in front of the psychiatrist because he killed the chicken, and my dad wasn't laughing. He didn't think it was funny. He didn't think it was funny at all, so he just changed the channel. And that was the horrible thing about being a kid, watching TV. Because nowadays kids have their tiny little screens, and you go off and somewhere and watch it anywhere. But we had this big machine, and when you had a father, they would just come and click it to whatever they wanted. You could be halfway through a movie. You could be at the end of a movie. You could be like 5 minutes to the end, and the killer of the murderer is going to be revealed. Who is it? And then click. I'm watching Jay Leno. No, Jay Leno wasn't in those days. This is the 70s. That would have been Johnny Carson. Yeah. Anyway, it was the most watched episode from a comedy series in TV history. You would think Hawkeye could have stopped crying for a brief moment for such a distinction. And you'd figure my dad would just bear with it. Just, hey, this is TV history. But no, my dad clicked the channel, and that was it. And I'll never know what happened to Hawkeye. I'll never know. Did he ever stop killing chickens? Did he ever stop crying? Did the psychiatrist cure Hawkeye? It's not strong enough of a mystery for me to look for it on the internet, though. It was kind of a depressing show, and but that's the thing. Comedy and sadness are brothers, okay? And comedy and horror are brothers. I don't know. I don't want to really stretch that because I think that might be the limit. Comedy and horror, comedy and sadness. Yeah. Melodrama. Sometimes it's nice to keep some mysteries unsolved. It's like Schrodinger's Hawkeye. Is he crying eternally without break? Or is Hawkeye really dead? You tell me. You could buy my completely non-corporate comics, not created by a team of people in combination with marketers. My stuff is humorous. It's adventurous. It's sometimes dream-like, I guess you could say. Dream-like adventures in humor. However you want to say it, it's visual. It's not like anything else out there. Yet It's very accessible. I have El Shaddai too. Maybe that's my best one. I have better stuff I haven't even published yet. It's just waiting till I get some people. Okay, so I can, you know, actually be up in the algorithms and my book can be sold. So I'm waiting. Okay, I have Snow White. I have like the real Snow White, the real one, where I take the earliest version of Snow White. Okay, and I, I illustrate not only every sentence, but even in between sentences. Okay, so you get the real story. Nobody knows the real story until it's all visualized like this, and you'll see it, and it'll blow your mind because Snow White is a cosmic horror. Yeah, it's a cosmic horror, and everybody knows that. Actually, everybody knows that. Take away the elves that were turned into baby men. They were turned into baby men. It's true. They weren't baby men. That's one of the reasons why C.S. Lewis and Tolkien were furious with the original Disney version. It's why did you turn them into baby men? Anyway, like I have the real, and she was 7 years old. It's not a story about any kind of true love's first kiss or a girl's period or anything like that. She's 7 years old at the end of the story. She's 7 years old. Okay, the prince is not a 35-year-old man. The prince is another 7-year-old. Why would the prince be walking around in the forest? Like, no, this is a young prince that's being taught. You know, it's like everybody reads it and they go, "Ooh, 7-year-old," and they try to they wipe it from their mind, but it wasn't a dirty story. Stop it. You know, stop it. It's not a story about a sexy 19-year-old that has a bunch of baby men like following her around. That's a totally new story. You know, Disney never went back to the stories and said, let's be as faithful as possible. No, it's like 1939 propaganda, which is awesome. I like 1939. The 30s were a very sweet time. All you have to do, like I was saying, you know, listen to the Boswell sisters. 1930s Boswell sisters. Don't listen to Madonna. Listen to the Boswell sisters, okay? Anyway, yeah. My books. I even have a kid's book, and I should stop. Okay, this is it. I'll see you next video.